Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Midwest Factor here, and today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back with another video here, and today we are going to be going over how to build Mirage Prime into an absolutely insane weapons buffing build. Now, I don't know about y'all, but I was always somebody who really only ever used Mirage for her AoE, Sanctuary, Onslaught, and nuking. You know, the range, a little bit of strength, and then slap Explosive Ledgerman on, throw on a bunch of weapons that I need to level up, and just go spam her too. That's pretty much the one way that I had Mirage built for the longest time. It's all I would use her for. I wouldn't use her for anything else. I had always heard bits and pieces about her weapons buffing platform, but me, I'm a Saren main. So in my eyes, I was like, yeah, it might be good, but is it Saren good? So I had just kind of written her off, and I only ever used her for speed leveling in Sanctuary Onslaught until I was doing some Netra cells, right? And I ran into two Mirage players who were using her Hall of Mirrors, and I think they were using Grimoires, if I am correct. And they were just lighting up rooms with so many projectiles that, you know, the Grimoire projectiles, they fly around, they're super bright, glowy, really flashy. And I was just like, that actually kind of looks fun. Now, a lot of weapons platform builds, you know, they're pretty standard. You're just slapping on a helmet ability to buff up damage from one gun. It doesn't really change much. But these two guys I was seeing run around, just both of them spamming Grimoires. I had Bloom enabled, brother. I couldn't see shit. So those two guys, whoever they were, is what made me start looking into Mirage and how to build her as a weapons platform. Because I was like, even if it's not that insane, it still looks really fun. So that kind of led me into this path for the last couple weeks of trying to learn as much as I can about Mirage and how to build her into a weapons platform build. And let me tell you, I have learned a lot, and I gotta say, she is that insane. Alright, so we're gonna switch it up a little bit today. I'm gonna start off showing the full build here on her. These are all the mods I'm running, the arcanes, and then I'm going to go back, I'm going to break down the mods, and then we're going to go over abilities and weapons. But so if you're just here for this is what it is. This is the mod setup. This is what I've been using. I subsumed Nourish over her too, but we're going to be talking about that a little bit later. But all right, let's talk a little bit about the mods. I just want to give a breakdown, show off everything that I have on. So in the Aura slot, I'm running Growing Power. Since you're going to be shooting so many bullets constantly, the status effect, increasing the personal ability strength, is pretty much always going to apply. You know, when you start off the mission, you're going to want to make sure you cause a status effect, you know, with whatever weapon you have. And then you're going to be able to cast everything, and you're going to get an extra 25% strength out of it. Next up in the Eclipse slot, I'm running Power Drift. You can run whatever you want. Primed Sure-Footed, always a good option, obviously. But now, naturally, for any weapons buffing platform, generally what you want to try and lean into is strength and duration, mainly because you want the strength to be buffing up your weapons as much as possible, and then you want the duration so you don't have to recast all of your damage buffing abilities as frequently. So what I'm running to get my strength up is Blind Rage and Transient Fortitude. Then for the duration, I'm running Narrow Minded and Archon Continuity. Now I know I've said it in all my other videos, Archon Continuity does the exact same thing as Primed Continuity, it just has 2 more drain, and in my opinion it's significantly easier and cheaper to get. So this is what I always run in place of that. Then I'm running Equilibrium for a little bit of energy sustain. If you don't find energy really being an issue, you can kind of swap this out for whatever else you would want. But then for survivability, I'm running Adaptation and Fast Deflection. And then I am running her Augment Total Eclipse. This makes it so any allies in range also get the benefits of your Eclipse. Now, yes, your doppelgangers from Hall of Mirrors count as allies, and Eclipse does apply to them with this mod, which is why we're running it. Now, I do just want to bring up Hall of Malevolence is a mod you can run if you wanted to. You could put it in place of Equilibrium, maybe. Basically, the damage of your doppelgangers is increased by 5% every time you kill an enemy. Now, this can be good. From my experience, it's not really needed. I have seen a lot of people run it, but I had actually taken this mod off to try and focus a little bit more on survivability. And what I've found is it's a pretty comfortable and still really good build without this. So I choose not to run it, but it is still an option for you if that's the route you wanted to go. Then onto the Arcanes, I'm running Arcane Aegis. This is just another shield buffing option. This kind of goes hand in hand with Fast Deflection for the survivability. And then I am running Molt Augmented, pretty standard, can't go wrong with it. More ability strength, the more kills you get. But in case you missed it earlier, here it is up on the screen again. That is the full mod setup. Like I said, we're very heavily leaning into duration and strength. We don't really need the range for anything here, and we don't really need the efficiency, because with that much duration, we really only have to recast everything about every minute. And that is absolutely more than enough time to get our energy back up from the initial cast. All right, now let's talk about her abilities and what is good for this build specifically here. Her passive pairs really good with her 1. So basically her passive reads sliding lasts 85% longer and acrobatic maneuvers are 50% faster. The reason this pairs so good with her 1 is basically you create 4 clones of yourself and they confuse and distract the enemy. Now with these, basically the more time you spend moving around, up in the air, doing bullet jumps, aim gliding, rolling, whatnot, enemies are actually going to target your doppelgangers more than they're going to target you. So while we're going to be using this ability to get insane damage buffs, it's actually really good for survivability as well. Now on to the 2. Not her 2, the 2 for this build. This is the slot I decided to subsume Nourish into, and Nourish specifically, mainly because Mirage already has a damage buffing ability and you can't put Roar or Zada's Whisper on her, which I do gotta say kind of sucks. Don't get me wrong, I love Nourish. I've ran Nourish for the longest time on almost all my builds, but there does come a point I'm getting sick and tired of hearing the ooh-woos. Like I said, Nourish is kind of the only other option you really have for putting another damage buffing ability on her, so that's what I decided to go with in her second slot. Now, Eclipse, pretty straightforward. If you tap it, with this build and this setup, you're going to get a 90% damage reduction. If you hold it, you're going to get a 538% damage increase. And now, keep in mind, that's just at base. If you get Molt Augmented all the way up to 250 stacks, and with growing power, this ability will be giving you an over 700% damage increase, which is absolutely insane, but also keep in mind, with Total Eclipse, all of your doppelgangers will also be getting that damage buff. And then with Nourish also being an AoE ability, that's going to be applying to all of your doppelgangers as well, and that in and of itself is 121% damage increase. Now I know that your doppelgangers don't do as much damage as you do. With this setup specifically, they're doing like 53% of the damage, but with the damage increases from Nourish and Eclipse, they're going to be getting over that 100% mark anyways. And then our 4, Spinning Ball of Light, we are literally never going to be casting this. Don't worry about it. Alright, Archon Shards. Very important here. Now I went with 2 yellow casting speed shards. Now I pretty much go with casting speed on everything just because I like being able to get my abilities out as fast as possible. That way there is as little downtime as possible. And then I went with 3 shield capacity blues. Reason being, this will get your shields up to 860 on this build here, and this will make your invulnerability duration 2.1 seconds, which is more than enough time for Fast Deflection to kick in, or Arcane Aegis. So I've found that this just kind of makes this like a really comfy build as well. Really nothing's going to be getting into your shields. And if it does manage to, you'll be having your shield recharge happening before it can even start eating into your health. Kind of the only thing you really have to worry about then is toxin procs, because, those bypass shields. If that is something you're worried about, or maybe, you're fighting some infested or something, you could swap out Molt Augmented for something like Arcane Resistance. That would kind of give you an extra layer of cushion on the whole survivability side of things, but that's entirely up to you. So now I do want to talk about just one little small nuance in her ability rotation and how you want to cast them. This works very similar to what I mentioned the other day in my Caliban summon video, where your summons or your doppelgangers need to be out on the field and active in order for them to gain the buffs from your other abilities. Because with Nourish and Eclipse, when you cast them, you're doing it AoE and buffing anything around you. So with this being said, you always want to make sure you cast your 1 first, so all your doppelgangers are out, and then you can cast your 2 and your 3. This is going to buff yourself and your doppelgangers, and then basically for the next minute or so, you're going to go nuts with your weapons. Then when your doppelgangers disappear, you recast everything. This is honestly as straightforward as it can possibly get. The cast rotation's literally 1, 2, 3 every about 60 seconds. All right, now let's get into another very important part of this. Weapons. Now, believe it or not, because I sure as hell didn't believe it, Mirage is a frame where anything can be good. A lot of other weapons platform builds that I tried, it's, oh, you got to use this specific weapon or a primary or secondary to make it the most effective. No. While Saren is just insane with status effects and, just applying a bunch of those, Mirage is literally any gun you shoot with its multi-shot included, you shoot 3 times. And now I say 3 because while you might be thinking, oh, there's 4 doppelgangers, shouldn't I be shooting 5 times? No. You gotta keep this in mind as well. When it comes to primaries and secondaries, only 2 of your doppelgangers will shoot when you shoot. The other 2 will be standing there and doing nothing. But now this is only for primaries and secondaries. I don't know why it's like this, but it is. But if you're using a melee, like say the Glaive Prime, every single one of your doppelgangers will launch that glaive. On any melee, all 5 doppelgangers are going to attack. So this does make melees slightly better than primaries and secondaries, but still, either way, you're multiplying your shots and attacks from absolutely anything, and it's insane. But so, my primary of choice on her is the Ceto Prime. Main reason, the alt fire. If you get a long, tight corridor, you are going to clear out that entire thing with Ceto's alt fire. All the explosions you get on Mirage with this thing, they remind me of the Flacker from Borderlands, and I absolutely love it. It's insane just watching all the explosions chain. Now, this is my mod setup for the Ceto. I modded it for corrosive and cold. You don't need blast because the radial attack has innate blast, and then we're going to have nourish on, so we're going to be getting that viral proc from that as well. So you're going to be applying 4 different status effects with this. Next up, we got old reliable, the AccuCore, because why wouldn't a gun that can have 5 different beams coming off of it that auto track and hit targets not be insane when you can shoot it 3 times at once? Now, weird thing about the AccuCore is actually you can have all 4 extra tendrils up on it. If you shoot at one target, only one of the tendrils will target them. But I've been trying to pay close attention when I use this thing, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I've noticed is since you have 3 different instances of this weapon, if you're only shooting at one target, I think I've seen it, I could be talking out of my ass here, I could be wrong, but it seems like you will actually get 1 tendril from each copy of the AccuCore attacking that enemy, which if that is the case, that just makes the AccuCore even more insane, on top of it already being an absolutely insane weapon. Now, this is my setup on the AccuCore. I know I have a bunch of different setups here, but I found that this one here, I can just kind of use wherever, whenever, and it's still really good. So that there is my go-to. Now, last up, we have the Glaive Prime. Now, realistically, any melee is going to be good. Specifically, thrown melees, you got the Zorus, all that type of stuff. I like the Glaive Prime personally. You could also use things like the Gunblades, maybe. But with this Glaive Prime, every single time you throw it, you are throwing it 5 times. And with the damage buffs from Nourish and Eclipse, you will absolutely one-shot acolytes. So here's the mod setup I run on my Glaive Prime. I run melee animosity because I like seeing red crits. You could slap some shocking touch on this and, maybe run melee influence if you wanted to. Not really my preferred playstyle, but, it's all up to you. But so that has been my go-to setup that I've found, weapons and everything. Obviously, really anything can be good on her. But like I said, the best things are going to be explosive, chaining, beam type of weapons. But she is absolutely a character that you can use whatever you want, and it is going to be insane. So that kind of wraps it up for today's video. If you guys have any other maybe weapon suggestions, build tweaks, whatever it is, let me know down in the comments below. If there's any other Warframes you guys want to see builds on, I'm kind of just in this experimenting phase where I like going around and trying to make use of Warframes that I've never really touched that much before, mainly because I'm really trying to keep busy up until Borderlands 4 comes out. But anyways, leave a like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate y'all. Hopefully you have a good day, and hopefully I will see you next time.